Good morning. If you're watching this on the day that I put it out, today is World Mental Health Day 2020. And I thought, because this year has been so difficult and restrictive and compressed for so many different reasons, I thought instead of kind of sitting back and joining the grumble, that I would try and put a little bit of energy into hopefully improving it for some people, even if it's just the slightest little bit. So if you're wondering why I'm talking about mental health a lot in the last couple of weeks, that's kind of why. In this video, I'm going to share with you the interview that I was lucky enough to have earlier this week with Match from the Walrus Foundation. Match is a great young lad who's one of the co-founders of the Walrus Foundation, who have a primary goal of just improving people's mental health using a lot of social media to try and sort of flip things around and just communicate as much as possible, which I think is a brilliant thing. So if you haven't checked them out, once you've watched this video and you've liked and subscribed yet, please do go and check out Walrus Foundation. They're doing some brilliant things. Just before we jump into that video, there's been an idea that's been festering around in my mind, and I thought I should share it with you. I think it might help some people. When one realizes that they can improve on something, whether it's their mental health or a subject area in school or a relationship with, I don't know, a friend or a family member, the probability of that area of their life improving improves dramatically, right? It's just fact. And I've realized that most people, especially using the English language, commonly have about 3 to 5 catchphrases that we use to check in to see if we're all right. And most of the time, they don't really mean anything. And I think most people's, I know mine definitely is, I think most people's vocabulary or ability to communicate their emotions is really restricted, and I don't think it's an active choice. I think it's probably just an inbuilt sort of habit in which you don't really think about those different words for the emotions. It's a bit like not knowing many colours other than, say, like the primary colours. So it is just an idea, but if people started to develop a vocabulary or a vernacular of more words to be able to explain exactly how they feel, maybe they'd understand better themselves exactly why they feel really positive about that, and they can do more of that, or why they feel confused or anxious or betrayed or whatever, and they could actually pinpoint what it is and hopefully improve that area. I don't know, it's just an idea. I suppose it's kind of a bit like what I'm trying to do with my writing music every single day. Where I'm trying to find the intricacies of the emotion I'm trying to explain, or the story I'm trying to tell through that piece that day, whether it's a harmonic colour or a tempo or whatever it is. And maybe it would be a good idea if we start to do that with our day-to-day lives. It's just an idea. Anyway, on to the video. I really do hope you enjoy this one. I had a great time chatting to Match. I found it really useful for me just to say some things out loud, and hopefully even if one tiny little bit that we spoke about resonates with you, I'm a happy guy, so that's great. If you do enjoy this video, please drop it a like, subscribe, share it on, and speak about how you're feeling. Peace.
Right, sweet. So, this is the second episode of my story, which is a new thing that we're doing over on our page, which is basically like a series of episodes with different people talking about different sorts of forms of mental health, experiences, etc. And I'm just going to bring Jamie in now. Here he is.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, good, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And a long time no see.
I know, it's been years. Are you well?
Yeah, I'm good. How's things with you?
Yeah, pretty good. I've been quite lucky during lockdown, I think, compared to a lot of people. It's been an okay time. What about yourself?
Yeah, all right. I think this is basically like keeping me busy over lockdown. So
Yeah.
I had like a good lockdown experience in the sense that I had time and I had something to work on, so it was kind of good. Whereas at the very start of lockdown, I was like had no clue what I wanted to do. I had like nothing to aim for, so I was just a bit in a weird situation.
Yeah, sort of lost with the
For
time.
sure. So this is just some background. So basically, Jamie taught me music in high school. Back when I was like a little shit in school, I thought honestly, and yeah. So Jamie taught me GCSE music at school. Very cool guy. Yeah. So do you want to like do an intro about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm 26 years old, and my life is sort of split between being a professional creative, I suppose, on one side, with like music and theatre and creating stuff, composing and playing. And then on the other side, I've been a teacher. I was head of music until the end of this summer. And so it's kind of been split between those two sort of fields, which can definitely complement each other a lot, but they can also sort of pull against each other and be pretty tricky to get the balance right between them. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Yeah. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about writer's block, anxiety with, especially within creatives, burning out as well. So yeah, making a start. Did you like experience anxiety or like forms of like stress or block from like when you were in school, or is this something that's happened like quite recently for yourself?
Good question. I think it's always been there in the sort of, not always in the background, but maybe I didn't realize what it was for quite some time. Weirdly enough, I was actually talking to one of the first teachers that ever spoke to me about it properly in the sixth form, and he pulled me aside one day, and he was like, "What's going on?" And I thought I was in trouble, and I was trying to be like a good boy and like doing my work and all that kind of stuff, and he said, "Look, you look awful," and I was like, "Oh right, okay." I hadn't realised, and at the time I was doing school, but I'd started gigging quite early when I was like 14, 15, 16, and I was trying to run a band, and I was going to do like a Saturday music school as well. And I was like burning out, and I didn't realize at the time. So I think it's always been there, probably in the state of like burnout. But I guess it's something that never fully goes away, because it's healthy to have lots of different like emotions and experiences as a human, but I suppose it comes in waves, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Life.
Yeah, so if anyone doesn't know, burnout is basically like, its dictionary definition is fatigue, frustration, resulting from prolonged stress, overwork, and intense activity. So I think often a lot of people like who are watching this live stream, anyone at university, a lot of people will have experienced this already. So basically when you're working very hard and you're not allowing yourself to unplug correctly, you then reach a state where you feel like absolutely awful, you feel knackered, and often you find yourself questioning everything. So yeah, burnout is, personally, burning out is something I'm very scared of, because it's happened before. I go into that complete breakdown just because purely of overworking. But yeah, I think with burnout is the fact that you have to make sure that you unplug correctly, because what people always do is working hard, especially at like a young age. You always feel like society tells you have to work hard, like work all the time. But the most successful people are the ones who can balance working hard and like unplugging correctly. So one famous quote that was said by a physicist said, "Forget balance, find harmony," which I think is quite good for talking about burnouts. But yeah,
I'm going to jump in. I think something that's quite hard about burnout is that you don't always recognize it yourself. It often takes an outside person to remind you that you're doing something that's maybe out of the ordinary. And I like that because everybody's harmony is different, so everybody has a different balance, and sometimes it's literally what you just said, but you can think you're doing a really good thing by working really hard on a project, or you're devoting yourself to a new job, or whatever. But it's sometimes that can be the thing that tears you apart. So you sometimes need the outside recognition to let you know you've burnt out, sort of thing.
Yeah, and going on to, so obviously with burnouts comes certain things like writer's block, which is one thing I really want to talk to you about.
Sure.
So what's your stance on writer's block, and what's your experience been like, etc.?
So this year, to give a bit of context for those of you listening, I'm doing a challenge where I'm trying to write a new piece of music every single day. And I got pretty much halfway through the year and it was all going smoothly, and I hadn't really considered it to be this onerous task. And I hit a writer's block stage right in the sort of towards the end of June. And it was around a time that I was doing 30 collaborations with 30 different people across 30 days. And I found that I was so worried about what they would think about the music that it was taking longer and longer to write these pieces of music. And it got to the stage where I couldn't make a decision that was my own without worrying about outside thoughts or outside points of view. And it basically froze me up, and I didn't even want to listen to music at the time or do anything. Like, I really didn't want to be on social media because that's where you get to see what people think of it.
Exactly.
So that was my sort of recent experience with writer's block, and it was really good to step away. And I stepped away for it was nearly a month. It's like a long period of time, but it doesn't feel like a month when you're in it. It's a bit like if you're trying to write an essay for uni or anything. It doesn't feel like a week you take off it. It can feel like forever because it's really hard to remember when that time was good before. But the way that I sort of found my way back, I suppose, was doing things that weren't related to it at all, but starting to just move. And I don't just mean physically, I mean like chat to people about it, or do something for somebody else. So like go and help a neighbor with the groceries because we're in lockdown or something. And it's those tiny little goals, when you achieve them, that you feel like you're doing something positive, and then you eventually get into a mindset where you're like, okay, I could probably give this a go again. Exactly.
And just going back to what you said, where you were saying that like obviously music is the one thing you probably like enjoy doing the most, and when you don't feel like, especially for musicians who like a professional or for writers in general, like when you feel like you're not doing your job, it must be a very scary thing. So I've seen something that said, it was by an author from a woman who writes for the Times, and she said that writing is a job. So some days you don't feel like doing that job. So and there's no like teacher's block, there's no dentist block, no builder's block. So like she said, you can't figure out why people have created this like mysterious phrase just for writers. Because if a dentist goes to work and just goes, I don't know what I'm doing, it's weird. Whereas for professional musicians, it can be often it can have very negative effect on you, like mentally, if you can't feel like you can't do your job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it goes from something that you're thinking about all the time. If you're just like walking down the street and you might be thinking about a mix that you've just done or taking inspiration from around you, all of a sudden you don't want any input. You're just you just want to shut down completely. It's more than just like the job. It's your life. Yeah,
definitely. And even so, I went to college in Manchester. I went to Access to Music, and one of the ex-students from there was Ed Sheeran. I remember he came in and did an interview, and he talked about how he overcame writer's block. So what he used to do is, like, when he was recording Divide, like arguably one of the biggest like pop albums of the last 10 years, and that Shape of You is possibly one of like the biggest songs of the decade. And he said when he was writing Shape of You, like literally had no clue where he wanted to start, where he wanted to finish, and it took him ages to write it. But then he found, again, like he just needs to do something random, something to get like the juices flowing. So I mean, he said that his manager would come in, make him sit down on the floor in the studio, and he'd just drop him like a whole box of Lego. And like Ed Sheeran would just sit there and build. But this is the thing, like this guy is like one of the biggest musicians, if not like the biggest musician on the planet. And he is still going back to basics of doing little tiny things that just make you stop thinking about the actual task, but really, like, at the back of your head, it's just getting those sorts of juices flowing, which I was thinking is crazy. Like, to think that he's so big, and then like how he gets inspiration by sitting there and like and building Lego, which is crazy.
Totally, yeah. It's often something that has absolutely nothing to do with that task, and often kind of surprising. But yeah, sometimes it does take another person to go, just go and do this, and then you do it, and then all of a sudden you're good to go. I stumbled upon a podcast that another lad from Sandbach has started up, talking about self-doubt as well.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant, because it was somebody that I knew just talking. It wasn't big profound statements. It was just talking about it.
Yeah.
And actually that just eased everything up and brought this thing down, because also, I'm sure you've found it, if you've got a project you're working on, inside your head it's the biggest thing in the world, and it's
100%.
It's like all you see, and then you realize that to everybody else pretty much in the world, it doesn't even exist. You know what I mean? It's just, until you show them it, it's not real. So
and then it's hard for you to comprehend that, like, one thing that like is always in your mind is like the biggest thing in the world, like no one even knows about, or no one thinks about, like no one actually really like cares about it. So yeah, and that can often like make you scared. And I think what you going back to self-doubt as well, I feel like one thing I wanted to touch upon now is like comparing yourself to other people as well. So I feel like one thing that is can be very helpful or very toxic is like comparing yourself to people. So often what I find myself doing is like looking at the people who I like look up to. So whether that's celebrities or just people I know, and then going back to like where they were at a certain stage in their life. So where I am at, so like 19 now. So I look at like, I don't know, let's say even like Bill Gates. Where was Bill Gates at 19? If I look at Bill Gates when he's 19, it literally makes me so anxious because I'm not doing half.
Destroys you. Yeah.
But the one thing that I feel like is very important to iterate is like everyone is different. Everyone has a completely different experience, a completely like different journey. I mean, like look at like Ricky Gervais is a perfect example. So the guy was working like an office job when he was like 40 something, and then just like wrote The Office, and then somehow just like blew up. So success and finding your meaning, finding your passion or ambition can come at any time in life. Like everyone was doing A levels and stuff after sixth form. I literally had no clue, like absolutely no clue. So I started doing like A levels, then dropped out, went and did like a media course in Manchester. But then still, like going into uni, like I'm doing fashion now. Like realistically, I've never wanted to do fashion. I can't see myself being in fashion. But my course allows me to like, gives me the skills to run like Walrus, which is only now like over lockdown is when I sort of went like, like I've only just found it. Whereas I've had friends who like from GCSEs like, I'm going to be a doctor, like 100% going for it. But then I now still have friends who are like in their like late 20s who are still like choosing, not sure about at all what they want to do. But there's no problem with that because everyone's story is completely different.
Yeah, it's so true. I think you're right. You can gain a load by getting perspective of what other people are doing or have done. But the interesting thing, it's something that I've thought about a lot whilst I've been teaching, is until you're about 18 or later, if you do higher education, you're literally told to all focus in on the same thing, and it sort of compresses who you are as a person. So you think you're doing well if you do well at school or at a grade.
100%.
And then you get to that age and then it inverts, and you have to then go, okay, well, who am I? But you've not been told to really think about that until that age. And that's why I think it is a really hard thing, because you haven't practiced it ever. You know, you've been thinking away from you, like you're doing maths or English or music or geography based on what somebody else wants you to do to get to a level, which, you know, it's good, you get some skills behind you.
Cool.
But then you've got all these skills, and then sometimes you go, well, actually, I don't know what I actually think about really anything. And that's a really scary thing, especially if you get into jobs quickly, and then after a few years you go, oh, I'm not sure if this is me as well. So it works both ways, totally. And I think it's just about finding, again, balance is not the right word. I suppose having an awareness about what that you're looking away and you're going, okay, this is what people are doing, but then it's also giving yourself time, and honest time, to go, what's my truth? What do I think about all of these things?
Definitely. I mean, that, like, I can relate to that 100%. So being in school, I always felt like it was very clear that, like, you had to go to school, had to get great GCSEs, go to sixth form, like college. Anyone who went to college from where I was from sort of, in a sense, got like looked down upon, which I felt was ridiculous. So, and then go do your A levels, graduate, go to university, get a job, and then from that job just go up and up and up. And that was literally what I felt like a lot of teachers, parents, just everyone, sort of, just society that was what was sort of pushed onto us, that I felt. So I remember when I dropped out of sixth form to go and do like media in Manchester, a college where it was just like a music college. Everyone was like really creative. There was no uniform, so you could dress how you wanted. And I remember when I first went there, a lot of my friends were very much like, yeah, you've lost it. Like, you've just completely ruined your life by doing this. And that's why I wish there was some sort of support for more people. Like, I sort of believed in myself, and like hadn't thought that even if this doesn't turn out, I could still come up with something. Yeah. But I wish there was a bigger support network in the schools to encourage like people to go into more creative arts, to go into jobs that aren't like 9 to 5, because I feel like schools in the UK just craft people for 9 to 5s. And I wish there was more support there. Like, say, yeah, if you do GCSEs, you go to college, or if you want to take a gap year, but emphasize the whole fact that taking time out just for the sake of taking time out is like, when I see people, so I was thinking of like deferring this year and going to do like just take a gap year, but not for just to like lounge around for a whole year, obviously to like work. So this is what I wanted to work on. But I feel again like that should be encouraged. Like, only when I've come to universities now, when I realised, and later in college, like I was very, very inspired to go out of like my comfort zone and do not what is sort of expected of me, but more of what could excel me, if that makes sense. So yeah, I wish there could be more of a support system like in like early education, to show that there is like more options, and that people can like dream big and not just have to go and like do this 9 to 5 that is expected, comfortable, and everyone will pat you on the back for once you do it.
Yeah, totally. I think it's a really hard balance to kind of please the masses, because there are loads of people that do like the 9 to 5s, but it's murky water, because you change your mind all the time about what you want to do, and I guess that's the thing that isn't talked about, which is that's okay. If anything, that's a healthy thing to do, to change your mind. I heard about there's a lad I met in New Zealand that went to a school that after the age of 13, every single term they would write a speech. So the first week of every term they would write a speech, and they had to tell the teachers what their projects would be throughout the year. So it's not a mainstream school, but it could be they might write a play, or they might design a fashion thing, whatever, like a show or something. And they put all of their energies into that, but by sort of at the start of it saying, this is what I'm going to be doing and these are my goals, they had ownership over what they were doing from a very early age. And that taught responsibility about decisions, and it also allowed them to feel free to go and explore all these different things.
And I think the amazing thing about that as well is, after say a year of that, you have like a portfolio of 12 projects that you've done, which arguably is more impressive than just going to school for a year and getting your grades, or like sitting your end of year exams. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like that's weird. So like every month now, I have like a big goal that I set myself and like try to achieve, so that when I come to the end of like the year, I will have like 12 sort of big things that I've achieved. But yeah, I think that's amazing. Like, it just shows how people all around the world have different approaches, and there literally is no recipe for it. There is no recipe for success, no recipe for happiness, because everyone is different. Like, life can throw in crazy curveballs, And I think it is just trying to find a balance where you find where you're not most comfortable, because you don't want to be comfortable all the time.
No.
But where you feel like you are constantly chasing something or constantly have something to aspire to.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's a hard one. When you talk about mental health a lot, or look into it, it's very easy to forget that you grow the most out of your comfort zone, but you need to somewhat comfort yourself into a good mental state to be able to be uncomfortable. So it's like a constant roundabout of
definitely,
balancing or finding your way through.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is one thing that I wanted to go into. So we're talking about that, I saw a graph which I'll see if I can get up. So I'll start with, have you heard of flow state?
Yeah.
So flow state is something that I was like really interested in, like looked into. So for anyone who doesn't know, it's this perfect state where you're working on something either you love or something that you're passionate about, and you're just in like a perfect state where you're doing the thing but not consciously thinking. So example is like a footballer playing football. He's not thinking, right, now I'm going to go right, take a shot and hope it goes in. Like it's just natural and it comes, and you're just constantly going. And I read up about this, and scientists said that repetition is a language of the brain, which goes back to like practice makes perfect. So yeah, looking back at writer's block and stuff, it's just about repeating things that you know. If you're say writing a piece of music and you're not enjoying it, go and do an activity another activity you enjoy, like go kick a football about for an hour. It will not directly impact it, but subliminally you're sort of doing something else which is distracting you away from worrying about that, but can creatively then inspire you afterwards. And so I looked at this thing which I'll try to get this graph up. So I don't know if you can see that. So basically, this state shows where your skills and your challenges. So the middle bit is like your flow channel, and anxiety is when so your level of skill matches your challenge. When you have like a perfect square going from say skills to challenge, that's when so where it says you should be here, I don't know if you can see that, there's a dot just above my screen. So that's where you should be, where your skills perfectly match your challenge is your flow state. And anxiety is when your challenge is really high, but your skill set doesn't match that. So an example for that would be like if a musician is asked to say, make a song for someone, and the client then sends them like a piece of music that they want it to sound like, but that producer then knows that that's not their skill level, and obviously that causes like inner anxiety because you're not in essence capable of doing that yet this challenge is really high, so that will cause anxiety. And then there's like boredom, which is where let's say you have like, I don't know, where you get told you're having a race with a 5-year-old. So like the challenge is really low, but your skill is really high. So in essence, you have no satisfaction of that because you're just bored, because 10 times out of 10 you're going to be a 5-year-old in a race. So I think it's trying to match your skills with the challenge. So if you're ever so this guy was talking about motivating yourself. So like I'm really good at painting, but I'm trying to do this project and I just don't feel like it's enough. So try and get your skills to match the challenge. And this with flow state as well, people believe that it's not something that anyone can do. Anyone can get flow state in anything, because that graph shows that you can start from 0 on your challenge and 0 on your skills. But yeah, I think flow state's a big thing because, especially in the creative industry, a lot of people find themselves in it. And people come up with this thing that is this magical thing that will happen like a few times in your life, but you can actually sort of prepare yourself for it. So like making sure that, like, say you have a studio session as a musician like tomorrow, making sure that you are well rested, that for the past month you've been putting in the hard work, like smart hard work, and like learning to ignore distractions as well can just put you in flow state. So you can sort of force yourself into it, which I find is like really, really interesting.
Absolutely. I think that's kind of something that I'm trying to do with this challenge this year, is to practice writing and practice just creating stuff. Quite becomes it just becomes a habit, rather than it's like, oh, on Friday I'll get writing. It's just a constant thing. And to sort of flip back what I said about education in this context, I think one good thing that it does a lot of is it does teach you to how to repeat things until you just have to get them right.
Yeah.
And at music college we did a lot on the 10,000 hour rule. When you repeat something, you know, for that amount of time, that you're able to master it, and it becomes so inbuilt, it's just part of you. And that, you know, that's one of the massive benefits of the system at the moment, is that you're able to learn those sorts of things. I've just seen Nick Powell's just joined to watch, and he's a pro footballer. I think he's playing for Nick.
No
he played for
way.
Stoke. Yeah.
I remember this is completely off, but I remember my history teacher when I was in year 8. I think Miss Kane. So
Yes.
Miss Kane told me that, oh, by the way, Max, that seat that you're sitting in is Nick Powell's seat where he's sitting there. I was like, mad, because obviously, like, being so I like big football fan, like I love United, and I like love to go watch Crew when I'm back home. So yeah, it's a bit crazy that Nick's watching.
And for all sports people, like the amount of repetitions they must have to do to be able to not mess it up and get thousands of people shouting at you, I just couldn't even imagine sort of the mental focus it would have to be.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah.
Especially so, like Nick did it at like the biggest stage. I mean, when Crew went to the playoffs, he literally like got Crew promoted, which is unbelievable.
That's right. Yeah.
But then again, going back to the conversation we were having of just the 10,000 hour rule, I remember John made an interview, and he talked about he logged like from a very young age that he like heard about this.
Yeah.
And he was logging like how much he was doing. And he says he's done over 10,000 hours, which obviously it may or may not be true. But he even said, I still don't feel like I'm anywhere near where I should be, which is a constant thing of like I feel like you may have dreams and ambitions, like a set goals, but I feel like when you reach those goals, you'll realize that there's other things that you will want to go do based off the back of that. So I think having something to keep motivated, like having certain goals constantly, to have something to chase, will have an amazing impact on your mental health, because A, it will give you something to do, and B, it sort of gets your mind off worrying and stressing about certain things because you're busy doing certain activities. But so I'm sure, like for you, how doing these daily makes, you have like a set, so an hour or so a day where you are working. Which, by the way, when I first heard about you doing daily makes, I thought, okay, so because a few of my friends did music from college, and they did like a song a day, they drop on Instagram. And it would just be like a quick thing they do on their laptop, and they drop like a 30-second snippet on like just as a voice memo.
Cool. Yeah.
Onto Instagram. But you're taking that like to a completely different level with like
Thank you.
Videoing it. I remember when you did the one with Miss May. Is it Miss Mace? Miss Massey.
Yes.
So, that like the editing, unbelievable, with like 5 different screens. And it like I imagine the amount of time that you put into making that every day. Like I wasn't surprised when you came out and said that you burnt out. I was not surprised at all, purely because while having a full-time job, while having as a teacher to do marking, everything, etc., and having to do these daily makes, also balancing like family relationships, friends, all this, and then giving yourself time as well just to chill out, it must have been a bit crazy.
Yeah, totally, it was. And it was weird, because just before it, I was like in a really set routine, and it was 90 minutes from literally opening my laptop, writing, recording, mixing, video editing, and then out onto social media. And then in the sort of 20 days before that, it just, the routine demolished. So I'm back onto a routine now, which is really good. And having like a fairly sort of clean setup really helps, you know, wherever you are or whatever you're doing. Even if it's like, if you're in a coffee shop and you're writing on a laptop, that massively helps, I think, because then you're limiting distraction for what you're doing, but you're leaving enough stuff around. Like I've got all my saxophones underneath the desk and stuff. You've got enough stuff around to be able to pick on it if you need it there and then. But yeah, totally. Looking back, it's not surprising at all. But I've learned so much from it, and I'm glad it did happen, because if you look back at it and you talk about it and you're able to analyze it, then you learn more than if you just plow on, sort of thing.
And especially for you as a musician, I'm sure out of these, when you come up and have like 365 of them done, is it a year that you're doing it for?
Yeah, it would be 1 year. I have not thought about next year.
So after doing that, I'm sure you will have like, maybe if it's not all, it obviously won't be all of them, but if you have like, even say after like 365, 5 of those you may look back at and go, right, okay, this is something that I can do. And then that could build onto like even better things that then next year you could focus on. Do you know what I mean? So perfect example of you starting a project, achieving that goal at the end of the year, but then possibly going back and then looking back at it. So are you doing like 2 of them now?
2 a day.
2 a day. Is that with filming as well?
It will be, and I've this is the first time I've said it out loud, but the next video I stick out is kind of talking about the plan between now and the end of the year. And I'm going to do a couple of live streams for like, I don't know, maybe 8 hours or something, where I try and do as many in that time, and I might raise money for charity or something as well in those times. That'll be a nice thing. Maybe Walrus Foundation. It'll be cool. And then just try and like bring people into the process, but also blitz it out in a couple of days, sort of a big chunk of them. And I've still got some collaborations to do. So sat on my hard drive, I've got like 15. Well, I've got 10 from June, but I've got about 15 people that have sent me stuff that I sort of decorate. So that I think that's what I'll start with in a couple of weeks' time. So
awesome.
Yeah.
What do you think was like the main, like something that you've learned or found out about yourself over this period that you may have not known? Or like any new processes that you learned? Do you feel like you found like a new working process, like routine?
Yeah, I think I learned musically. I guess 2 sides to answer this. Musically, I was discovering to trust in the things that I actually wanted to hear and actually wanted to write. I think going through quite a strict music college post school, I was always very nervous about expressing my point of view on what I liked artistically, because people were so intellectual and they were so deep into their various music that I felt like sometimes they looked down upon what you like, because it might be Ed Sheeran or it might be Coldplay. Yeah. But so sort of trusting in what I liked musically, I'm learning more about that rather than what I should like. And then I think also I'm reinforcing that a routine is good for me, but I try and stray away from a routine at every possible opportunity. I'm just like, I like to do that and end up there rather than go straight there.
That's the thing. So I put out a post on the Walrus Instagram, like, success or any project is never going to be a straight line. Like, success is like backflips, turns, twists, turns, up, down. That's how you reach something that, like a level of success, something you enjoy. Just like based on what you said about going to like music college, I found that 100% with like going to school in London. So I got like down here listening to like Oasis or any sort of like indie music, I just get laughed at by everyone. And again, like I felt very anxious, felt like, or like especially going to fashion uni. Like when I went to college, I remember just like going to college, waking up, chucking on like whatever clothes I had ready, and then going out. I go to uni, and there's people with like that. You think this is like a runway, like every day just seems like a fashion show. So I remember walking into uni and thinking like, oh my God, I'm here in just like my trackies and a hoodie because I just want to like do my lecture and go home. And there's people in like 3-piece suits, like full hair done. I remember feeling so anxious that like I felt like I didn't fit in. But then that's just one thing like personally I've developed to understand that if someone doesn't like my music taste, that's fine, because it's my music taste at the end of the day. Yeah, and just not being afraid to like be confident in it. If someone laughs at you for something like what you're wearing or what your music says, that doesn't reflect bad on you. It just shows what sort of person they are, and it's just more sad on them, than it is on yours. So I can definitely relate to the whole. I was very scared at certain points when people are, let's put, when we do like pass the aux on like at parties. I would be like, oh my god, no.
The pressure.
I often didn't put on like music that I liked. I just put on like the safe option that I knew my friends were like listening to. But then again, like now, if I go, like I'll be the only person dancing to it. But do you know what I mean? Like I have that sort of confidence purely, because I just realised that what you like is what you like, and no one should judge you for that.
Totally, yeah, totally. I think something else that I've tried to focus on in the last year or so is my intentions behind my decisions.
Yeah.
So as long as I'm clear to myself that my intention for liking something like a piece of music or putting a piece of music out is because that's genuinely what I enjoy or what I want to create, and it's like an honesty with myself, then I feel a lot more at ease rather than, say, trying to put a piece of music out just because it's like showing off my technique or skills or that I'm trying to hit a certain target audience, because that's not, especially with what I'm doing this year, it's me discovering inwards what's going on in here and here, rather than going, okay, so this demographic, what do they like, which has its place, and the people behind the scenes in the music industry and the creative arts in general that can do that blow my mind, because it's a science. It's just madness. But I suppose having a clear intention that I'm cool with has been the biggest changer to settle me in here.
Yeah, I think that's very, very interesting. Yes, like anyone who can just go out, do what they feel like is just, this is what I want to do, and like don't think really of their target audience or anything, which is just madness to me. So I just keep getting calls. It's like Frank Ocean. So Frank Ocean is, I think, one example I could say, just a person who literally just makes whatever music they like, whatever content they like, chooses not to post on social media, go to like crazy events, and yet that has such a cult following behind it. So whenever he does drop like a piece of music, it's mayhem. Like shows you, if like Frank Ocean gets announced at a festival, it's like the biggest thing like going. And then again, like he was in a deal with like Apple Music where he had to write like 3 hours worth of an album, or I think it's like an hour and a half worth of an album or content for Apple Music. And obviously he didn't agree with like the whole, okay, you guys are going to tell me what to do and I'm going to hit these demographics. So he ended up like completely finessing like the whole industry and did like an hour and a half live stream of him just like building like a random wooden staircase in the studio with really weird background music. And he literally did the hour and a half, what should have been in like music videos, like a mini documentary, an album, singles. He did all of that as like a massive FU to Apple Music, and got out of like, just felt like he was being imprisoned. But then again, there's not a lot of people in the industry who can just be like, I do whatever I want when I want, and don't think about what other people think. And I think there's only very, very few people who can like fully truly do that, which I think is just insane.
Totally, yeah. And I always like looking back to trying to remember what it was like to be a really young child experiencing anything for the first time, because you haven't built up years of being conditioned to think a certain way or just being aware of other things. You've got no real perspective other than what you know. And like just trying to remember what it's like to be yay high and doing something for the first time, like gut instinct on a true.
Oh, sorry, you just cut out there at the end.
That's all right. I was just saying something I try and do is remind myself what it was like as a really young person experiencing things for the first time. Actually, you don't have to be young. I guess it's just the first time you experience it, about what you honestly feel inside. You know, is it amazement? And you can be amazed by something, but you might, you know, after many years, after seeing people maybe like turning their noses up at it or whatever, you might not want to. It's just like reverting back to that primal instinct of like, you know, what do you think of it? What's your gut instinct?
Perfect. Right, just to wrap things up, do you have any like one set piece of it or anything that you would like to say to any young creatives who are like struggling with anxiety, struggling with writer's block, burning out? I know it's a bit of a big thing,
yeah.
into a sentence.
So one thing I do that helps me with everything, and I've done it since I was about 12 years old. It's a bit weird, but can I show you? I wear odd socks. Oh, I can't see it.
Yeah.
There you go. Nice. Right, I wear odd socks, and there's a big reason behind it. That was my synth, by the way.
Okay, cool.
And the reason I do it is two reasons. One, my saxophone teacher when I was about 12 noticed that I suffered with OCD quite bad, and he gave me a big list of things one week, and he said, you know, it's like walk on the cracks in the pavement, put your volume on 13, and wear odd socks, right? And I was like really quite stressed about it, and I do it because even if I'm, say, in a formal setting and I'm teaching, or I'm at a concert or something, it's quite formal, just having this thing that nobody needs to necessarily see just reminds me of like, you can overcome something, or you can be your sort of funny, weird self underneath whatever you
no
try.
matter what big meeting, what corporate event you're in front of. 100%. No, I love that. Yeah,
exactly. So I do it for that reason, and I also do it for another reason, which is for many years I was a carer for a lad with disabilities, and I helped out as a volunteer at this play scheme for young disabled people. And Odd Socks is it Down syndrome or autism awareness? It's one of them, and it's that you wear them on that day, and it reminds me of the I suppose like the altruism, the giving, but also just actually whatever was going on in my mind when I came to be a carer. It was just all about you and them in the moment, and just being a human being, not what you were wearing or what I could do. It's just about like, did you have a good time in that moment, and can you make somebody else's life better? And so, yeah, I literally wear weird socks all the time, just to be like, Jamie, sort yourself out.
Yeah, that's awesome. But it's what I mean. Then again, like, you found your own little thing that works, which is quality, because that works for you. Whereas for me, like, if I'm ever stressed, like, I will go and bang on, like, so my flatmates absolutely grill me for this, because they know. so basically they know when I'm in a bad mood, because like I will bang on like the most cheesy like top 2000s, like Taylor Swift,
yes,
JLS,
mate.
all that.
That's where
stuff.
it's at.
And then that then just really like makes me just laugh and be like, listen, mate, like, no matter what you're doing, it's really not that deep. Like, really, it's not the end of the world. Just put a smile on your face and like go on. And yeah, like people laugh at me all the time for it and be like, why have you got to play like? I mean, one mate just sent me like a screenshot of being like, why have you got like a One Direction playlist with like all these? And it's just for those moments that I feel like completely just sad. But then again, that works for me. Your Odd Socks work for you, so finding something that works for you is, big thing.
Big thing, massive.
But yeah, awesome, Jamie. Lovely speaking to you. Thank you very much for coming on.
That's all right. Thank you for having me. It's good to catch up.
Yeah, we'll definitely do something in the future. Everyone go check out everything that Jamie's doing. The daily makes are ridiculous. Like, still doesn't comprehend in my head. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on, Jamie. I'll catch you soon.
You're very welcome. See you soon, mate.
Bye.
Bye. There we are. If you did enjoy this video, please drop it a like, subscribe to my channel, share it on, and do go and check out the Walrus Foundation. They're doing some brilliant things. See you in the next one.